When I first joined the bar in Birmingham, there were very few women, but there were women there who had been there from the outset, it seemed to me, who had forged a way. They hadn't advanced particularly in their careers, and it may well be that they hadn't been practising in the areas of law that would have enabled them to do so. Some had had career breaks and some had not returned, but there were very few practising female barristers when I first started. I didn't feel that the male barristers in Birmingham, in the provincial sets on the Midland Circuit, did judge women as women rather than as barristers and opponents or those who would appear alongside them. So I always felt I was judged on my competence rather than on my gender. Because I hadn't experienced any direct discrimination, because I always got on so well with my male colleagues, it didn't really strike me at the time that the profession was in any way a misogynist profession. But I began to hear of other women's experiences that showed that perhaps I'd had a very fortunate career path and a very fortunate experience of my colleagues. So I did get to hear of sexual harassment and bullying, and it made me realise that things weren't the same for everyone. So I also took from that the fact that I was hearing about the sexual harassment and the bullying meant that things were changing, because there had been a time when if that had been spoken of, then it would be the complainant who would be removed from the system rather than, if proved, the perpetrator of the harm. There came a time in 2004, 2005 where I felt that I'd established myself in silk. I was doing very, very high-profile family cases. I was doing high-profile criminal cases. I knew that I was respected by my peers, and I just thought perhaps this is, as good as it's going to get. And so when I got a prompt from the judicial office of the time that although there could be no inducement to do so, an application to join the High Court would be welcomed from me, and there was no guarantees that I would be successful. It just hit at the right time, so I applied. Someone who was already on the bench told me not to expect anything from it, that they were just looking to see who wanted to put their hats into the ring. And then rather amusingly, I received a telephone call as I was in Tesco's shopping for the school picnic, and just for the end of term school picnic, and it was Lord Faulkner who said, "This is Charles Faulkner," and I said yes, thinking it was somebody from Chambers, and I am in Tesco's at the tomato counter, thank you very much. And he reassured me that it was he who was speaking, and we had a conversation and I took the job eventually. I juggled career and motherhood with a great deal of assistance from my husband and with a great deal of assistance from nannies and schools and nurseries and friends, and always feeling guilt, which seemed to go with the territory, never being fully present in one place or the other, it seemed, but coming through it. But it is a great strain to maintain both a home life and a career that you're hoping to develop. It is difficult if a court sits late to get back to pick up a child from nursery, or to make sure that your case doesn't run into a day when the nativity play or the sports day is happening. And there sometimes are sacrifices that you have to make. I do think that women lawyers, particularly those who practice in the field, in public, and female judges, bring a different perspective. And that's not to say that they're only bringing a different perspective to family law and those areas of law that have been traditionally thought of as female. I have seen a tremendous difference in how allegations of domestic abuse are dealt with. I can remember when I started at the bar back in the late 1970s that in fact it was still the case that police officers would shrug their shoulders and say it's only a domestic. Now there's a complete sea change. There are initiatives that are being locally adopted and adapted, dealing with the victims of domestic abuse and the complainants of domestic abuse. The courts now recognise that it is vitally important to get an allegation of domestic abuse prosecuted as soon as can be, because in the short period of time between charge and trial, there's little time for the complainant to be either riddled with doubts or to be manipulated, whether by the perpetrator or any of their family. It also means that the alleged perpetrator knows that this isn't going to go off and be forgotten about. And it's brought about a remarkable change. It's empowered the police in their pursuit of domestic violence and abuse, sorting out all of those matters that were often forgotten, the emotional abuse that goes with it, the manipulation and coercive behaviour that's now becoming very much to the forefront. People recognise that this takes place in all stratas of society and does impact indirectly, even if they're not physically assaulted in the melee, children who see a particular lifestyle that some of them, I'm afraid, go on to emulate. As Senior Presiding Judge, I'm responsible for ensuring the efficient administration of justice on the circuits of all members of the judiciary and judicial office holders below the rank of High Court Judge. I do this as representative of the Lord Chief Justice. I think the fact that the Senior Presiding Judge is a role that presently is occupied by a female, and the next Senior Presiding Judge is going to be a female, will show that the glass ceiling, as it was thought to be, has been shattered. There are female silks, there are female heads of chambers, there's a female lead of the Criminal Bar Association, there have been female leaders of the bar. All of these things are making a difference.